The 2016-17 season was something pretty special for Huddersfield Town, a miracle even. In fact, it was so much of a miracle, I'm surprised people haven't tried to make a religion out of it yet. That's besides the point. Now there are two reasons I'm making this video. Firstly, so people can appreciate just how special Huddersfield Town's season was. And secondly, so if you don't know much about Town, you can find out a bit more about the history of the Premier League new boys. Now, I believe the best way to show you just how far Huddersfield Town have come to make it into the Premier League is to show you where they've come from. And for this, I'm going to take you back to 2003. Now, at this point, Huddersfield Town had just been relegated into League Two and also gone into administration, in which the club was saved from by a mixture of fan backing and Huddersfield Giants chairman Ken Davies buying the club for £1. Now let's skip forward 9 years to the 2011-2012 season, where Huddersfield Town won the League One playoffs to go into the Championship. Now again, this was something pretty special in itself, as they managed to win the playoffs on penalties after missing their first 3 penalties, and Alex Smithers, the goalkeeper at the time, scoring with Town's 11th penalty to win it for Town. After that, Town's first season Championship wasn't so great, as leading goal scorer last season, Jordan Rhodes, who scored 36 goals in League One and was a big reason Town got promoted, left shortly into the season. And on the last day, Town were relegated twice as results stood, until a very bizarre incident where Town and Barnsley both held the ball to stop either team getting relegated, as a point was enough for them after Peterborough went behind to Crystal Palace. After that, Town were perennial strugglers in the Championship. They were coming above 16th until the 2016-17 season. And this very likely would not have happened if they did not appoint their own self-proclaimed crazy German, David Wagner. This is as during the 2015-16 season under Chris Powell, in the 16 games they played, Town managed to average 0.9375 points per game, which would have been good enough to end up with 43 points at the end of the season. 3 points clear of the relegation places, which, as results could have gone differently, could have seen Town relegated that season, or almost definitely the season after. But luckily for Town, as I've said before, they brought in David Wagner, who with the same squad managed to average 1.2 points a game, saving them from the inevitable relegation and making them finish 19th. However, all Town fans could feel something different about the club. There was a new sense of belief in them that this season could be a lot better than the last. Maybe not as great as it was, but still a great season. However, many pundits such as Ian Holloway, who predicted would come 23rd, and Chris Awula, who also said would be relegated, as they did not fully appreciate Town's amazing dealings in a transfer market, managed to pick up bargains such as Christopher Schindler for £1.8 million, who I'd easily argue is a Premier League quality centre-back, bringing in good players such as Hefele and Lowe on free transfers, as well as the great loanings we managed to sign, such as Aaron Moy, who I'd argue were the best player in the Championship last season, Palmer and Brown from Chelsea, all on loan. They managed to do all this, spending just £3.78 million in a transfer market. This is 19.02 times less than what Villa spent. Also, 8 different teams buying just one player that costs more than Town's entire transfer budget, with particularly Newcastle and Aston Villa buying 7 players each that cost more than Town's budget. Now let's talk about the season itself, which started off with a 2-1 win against Brentford at home, which is nothing impressive by itself. But then thinking back to the fact that in the last game of last season we lost 5-1 to Brentford away, it just puts into context how much Huddersfield Town changed over the summer transfer break. And then it continued with a win against Newcastle, a draw against Villa, both teams spending astronomically more than Town in the summer. And as they continued to get victories, people again started to doubt them, saying they weren't good enough, they'd fall off, eventually going back to where they should be. However, Town managed to keep it up, and at the end of the season finished 5th, 14 places higher than what they had done the previous season. At the end of the season, Town also had 2 players in the team of the season. First of all, Moy, who I previously talked about, and second of all, Tommy Smith, who is a prime example of Dave Wagner's ability to turn players around. As while David Wagner was at Town, Tommy Smith was a very average Championship player, and many Town fans wondered whether he was good enough for the future. But under David Wagner's mentoring, he managed to get 10 assists and 3 goals in the league, and was arguably the best attacking fullback in the Championship last season. And then came the playoffs, which Town were definitely the least favourite to win going in, as in the last 10 games they had only managed to pick up 10 points and was 19th in the Championship form table at the time, as well as Town losing 4-1 to Fulham at home just before the end of the season. No, Town had a poor run before the playoffs and been beaten convincingly by another playoffs competitor. Town still managed to do it, beating Sheffield Wednesday in the playoff semi-final 4-3 on penalties, with Fernando Forestieri penalty being saved, giving Town the win, which just made the occasion all the more special. And then came the final. A game I believe mattered a lot more for Town than it did for Reading, as I felt that if Town had lost that, we likely would have lost a lot of our more influential players, likely to have lost David Wagner, and all hope of reaching the Premier League would have faded. Which made this for me simultaneously one of the most nerve-wracking and joyous days of my life so far, which may have changed so dramatically if Christopher Schindler had not scored his penalty to give us the 4-3 win on penalties, sending Town to the Premier League. I feel the best way to describe Town's season is to compare it to Michael Hefele, Town's 6'5" German centre-back, goal versus Villa, as it was someone somewhere no one thought they'd be, doing something no one saw coming, and no one can still believe quite what just happened.